I think you can, we all know you can take good photos on an iPhone. We've seen it, but that it's lovely and refreshing to hear that the seniors, and I want to clarify this just for non-American listeners and watchers, seniors as in senior high school children, right? So what age are we talking? 18?
Yes, 17 or 18. Although the very first time that I went to a conference, I tell people this all the time. My very first conference that I ever went to, I took like I had no direction. It was just like, oh, let me take this, and this, and stuff all over the gambit, all over, across the genre range. And one of them said, "Watch me edit seniors," and that was the title of the class. And I went in thinking that I was going to learn how to Photoshop wrinkles off a pensioner, or like that it was going to be octogenarians and, and like the, like those really gritty black and whites. I always tell people I was so shocked when I went in and I was like, wait, these are like my kids, like the kids that are in my house. And, and that was the day that I was like, oh, okay, there's a whole market for this. This is what I'm doing. So, yeah.
Cool. Um, yeah, because when I first found out about you and talked, obviously talking a lot about senior photography, I was like, I don't see any old people here. And then it clicked, obviously. But yeah, it's refreshing to hear that these seniors, want to, or at least recognize the difference and still appreciate the art form, the process, the technology that is professional photography, professional cameras. So yeah, that's really refreshing to hear. So when you're out shooting and you have a job come up or you're out shooting and practicing seniors, how do you maintain, I mean, assuming you've done a lot of it, right? How do you maintain that creative spark? How do you maintain that kind of, not originality, but a uniqueness to each shoot? What's your process about going about that?
Yeah. I have a very, very short intake questionnaire so that I know essentially one thing before I go into the shoot. Well, I know maybe three things. I always know their name. I know their pronouns because I ask it on their sheet. And then the other question, the only other personal question that I ask on my intake form is, and a lot of times it's a parent who's filling out this intake form, and it just says, "Tell me about your senior." And it's very open ended. That's it. Tell me about your senior. And sometimes I get, a list of the, like a transcript or resume kind of, they do this, they do this, they do this. But what I find is that most of the time, whatever's most important to that kid, the parent's going to tell me. So I have a little bit of knowledge before I go in. And then the question of how do I make this unique? Um, this might sound like a backwards answer. I use structure so that I can be creative. Does that make sense? So I have a posing workflow that I can work through, and it's just on autopilot at this point because of the, I've done. I always go to known locations. I know where the light is. I know what time the sun's going to go behind this mountain, what time the tree line is going to interfere with this, or if I can get by shooting earlier in the day because of, said features, or, oh, if it's cloudy, then I can flip them around and I can do this here. So taking those bits of structure puts that side of my brain on autopilot. And the piece then that makes it the most unique is that my conscious mind is free to actually engage with and talk and connect. That's the only piece that's going to be different from within every single photo shoot, is that you have a different person in front of you. I can take the exact same person, and you've probably seen this on YouTube where they'll take the same person and have six different photographers photograph them, right? And they'll see, like you see it's entirely different, even if it's the same subject, every photographer's, interpretation of it is much different. And so this is kind of that in reverse, is that I'm taking, same photographer, same posing workflow, same locations. And so the thing that becomes the most unique is the person themselves. And I think that makes a more beautiful portrait than really, than oh gosh, what did we joke about? Kids renting a helicopter to paraglide into a remote mountain location so that they get a place that none of their friends had. And I'm like, that doesn't matter. That level of uniqueness, it doesn't matter if you're connected to the person that's in front of you.
Yeah, totally agree. It's very important with portraits. But what is also important, you mentioned it, is having a toolkit, right? Especially with posing, to able to kind of think about it as not even think about it as second nature. Tell us a little bit without giving away your trade secrets. Give us an idea of what your posing workflow looks like. That'd be of great interest to people who like to do portraits.
Yeah. And I generally do just give it away. I honestly, there's a point where I say, okay, I can photograph X number of kids a year, right? And I have every confidence that the people who need me to be their photographer will find me. But I also think of all of the hundreds of thousands of kids who will graduate just in the US just this year. And I'm like, I want them to find somebody who sees them the exact same way. So I don't gatekeep. I don't hold pretty much anything close to the vest anymore. I just share it all, and I know that it will reach the people that it needs to reach. I'll even teach people that are like right within, I've taught people who have been less than 5 miles from me, and I don't even care. I'm like, no, I'll teach you my methods. It's fine. I was like, there's more than enough for
Well, this could be
everybody
a
to go
long
around.
conversation, right? Well, let's
Yes.
start from the top.
Yeah, sorry. Workflow posing. I always just try to keep it within natural range of motion, right? So I start observing my seniors from the minute that they walk up to me, right? I notice and pay attention to how they're walking. This is where that dance background comes in. And so basically, I divide everything into standing, sitting, and walking, right? And so seated poses are very easy for people to get comfortable in to begin with. I always say, gentlemen will sit comfortably on just about anything, and they'll just like relax right into it. And so that's a good way for them to get comfortable with me before I have the camera right in front of their face. So seated poses, standing, which you can also do kind of like perch, use different, natural elements in the Pacific Northwest, which is where I've had my business for over a decade. There's no shortage of rocks and trees and fences and just every kind of natural aspect you could possibly think of. It's beautiful. And then walking is just to introduce movement, right? Because when their brain is tied up on doing something else, right, then it kind of frees them up a little bit to have a little bit more relaxed nature, right? If they're thinking, they're like, oh, okay, oh, I'm just walking. Okay, that's cool, and then you'll see it on their face. And so that's the three tricks right there.